Come on in, everybody. How's everyone doing? I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. It's week 10. Who's counting? Oh, just me. Okay. Okay. All right. Week 10. We're in the final third of the semester. Can you believe it already? Final third. So I just got a couple little things to say before I hand it over to Professor Dorn and before we do the music education projects. What I'd like to tell you with the convo attendance, when you are going to a symphony orchestra concert and you don't show me a program or a ticket and you just send me a picture, how do I know you didn't just Google that and just email that to me, right? So make sure you keep your ticket or keep your program, write your name on it, and then I'll give you credit for that. Same thing goes for any other kind of other off-campus events for Convo, which really, I think that's it for the semester. We've already had the Colorado Symphony. Who went to that? Wasn't that amazing? Yeah, right, it really was. And to think about a piece that was written about 300 years ago, it still sounds fresh now. That's pretty incredible, I think. So, all right, I think that's about it as far as Convo stuff. We do have some things coming up this weekend. The Symphonic Band concert on Friday, right in here at 7, right? And then, does anyone know anything about this Harvest Festival? What is that? I'm the newbie here. What's a Harvest Festival? What is that? I'm seriously asking. All right, well, if anyone, Isabel. So I have that as a Convo event. Should it be a Convo event? No. Really, please, everyone, please. So I guess that's on the Convo calendar as a Convo event, but we will not be taking Convo attendance for that. But, sorry. As an FYI. All right, so I will take that event off. But, sorry, everyone. Sorry. Okay. Without further ado, Professor Dorn.
So this has been on the Convo calendar since the start of the semester, but I wanted to just call attention to it. Usually we try to bring a guest artist to campus, one or two during the course of the year. And then one that we have coming up here in the near future is Dr. Eric Richards. He is a professional trombonist, composer, and arranger. He was on the composition staff for the U.S. Army Field Band in Washington, D.C. for 20 years. He taught composition at the graduate level at the University of Nebraska, and he now teaches at Sheridan College up in Sheridan, Wyoming, where Erica Madison and Ebenezer Efrabar came from. Very, very fine composer and arranger. We are featuring him on the jazz concert on November 12th. We hope you'll come out for that. We're going to premiere a number that he wrote for us that we're just learning right now. But on Saturday, that's the day of the concert, on Saturday morning, he's going to give a workshop that is a Convo event you can get Convo credit for, that's titled The Art and Craft of Creativity. Certainly, any of you who are songwriters, composers, arrangers, are interested in those things, you should be there for that. He will have a lot of good thoughts to say about that. He's got a deep Christian commitment, so he will talk about that some. There'll be sort of a meet the artist aspect to it. But for anybody who's a musician, we are engaged in the business of creativity, whether or not we're composers or not, or songwriters. So I would encourage all of you to come. It's Saturday morning, 10 o'clock to 11:30, so you can actually get two Convo events on the same day. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, Saturday night for the concert, 7 o'clock. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. That's an event that we went to special trouble. He's offered to do extra things while he's on campus here, and that extra thing for us is that Saturday morning workshop for everybody as a Convo event. So that's it. Thanks.
All right, so today we have Kyla and Sarah giving their music education projects. Kyla, you're going first? All right. Everyone, let's give our full attention. Come on up, Kyla.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. This is my performance project. So who is my ensemble? Today we have 5 men and 6 women participating. It's an intermediate mixed chorus. So this would be our quote-unquote fall concert. And then we've got varying levels of musicianship that are represented in our choir today, which is actually very common in most choir settings. So my recruitment, I went to the ensembles that I was a part of, including handbells, women's choir, and peak harmony. And then I also recruited from a Lakewood Bible Chapel men's choir that I direct. And then I also went through the process of finding an accompanist. So I actually had a bit of difficulties with this. So I asked mostly every accompanist that I knew in the School of Music, and unfortunately most of them were busy during the rehearsals that I had scheduled, so I actually ended up recruiting one of my peers, Jonathan Pine. And then for our reminders, I sent out 2 weekly emails, one the day before and one the day of. So those would consist of updates on our rehearsals or changes of venue. We were actually supposed to originally rehearse in Leprino, and that ended up switching to rehearsing here. So we had 4 rehearsals, and then I also used that time to coordinate rides for people because of that change of venue, and that was unexpected. So my literature selection, originally I was planning on using the CCU's School of Music literature. I went down and looked at the pieces I had selected, and it actually ended up being too difficult for middle school level. So I ended up using music from my middle school, Fox Ridge. So the process that kind of went into that, so Jumbo, which is our first piece, it's in Swahili. It's mostly a unison piece, so it was pretty easy for my students to learn, and it's also got a bit of syncopation in there. And then Music in the Water, it's very lyrical and melodic, and then it also gave us a chance to focus on those dynamics. It included a lot of piano and mezzo piano, so it gave us a chance to kind of experiment with those. And this piece was actually meant to imitate water, so we experimented a little bit with that in our rehearsals as well. And then it also gave us a chance to do a 3-part split. So most of our pieces are actually in a 2-part split, so this gave them the chance to learn a bit of harmony with that. So Dance the Boatman Dance. So that piece is very rhythmically complex. It's got a lot of 16th notes, a lot of dotted 8th notes. It's got some syncopated clapping in there, which we actually had to modify and turn into stomping. And then it's also in 2-part and 2-2. So the last piece and then these 2 pieces were all in 2-2. And then we also learned Bare Necessities. So that's a piece I wanted to use originally for recruitment purposes. It's a fun, upbeat song that everybody knows. It's from the Jungle Book. But as we kind of went through it and rehearsed it, I realized there were a lot of teachable moments in that. So it's got quite a bit of intervals, some of the most complicated being the major 6th and the tritone. And then this is our sight reading process for our first rehearsal with our women. This is our men, which would be our second rehearsal. this is my rehearsal strategies. So for our warm-ups, a lot of the times with middle school students, they'll need to feel that resonance and really get their minds wrapped around a good tone. So the warm-ups that I included for that were buzzing with our lips, and then we also had a very nasal sounding "Mama Made Me Mash My M&Ms." Our choir actually really loved that one. So it helped them to feel that in their vocal folds and feel how that would come together. And then I included some breathing exercises so we could feel how that breath would go into the body and how it feels to sing with that breath. And then I had some pitch matching. So we would do some high sighs, and then we would match a pitch on the piano. And then we did some audiation as well. So we did some solfege, and then we would stomp or clap on one of those solfege pitches in order to practice that audiation. So with Jambo, I taught it through call and response, which is actually really, really common in the Kenyan culture. And then I also modified this piece. So originally when I got it, it was in 4-part. We actually had to modify it to 2 parts, so it's mostly in unison, and then we've got a 2-part split towards the end. And then music in the water, we used sight reading techniques. I also addressed important moments that would confuse students, such as a coda or dynamics, especially since with that coda we went from page 6 to page 11, and that might confuse students. And then on page 10, there's a part in the music where we actually briefly modulate to B flat. So I wanted the students to really go through that. So our process with that was we would learn part 3 all together, part 2 all together, part 1, and then we'd have part 1 and part 2, and we'd kind of build that until we got all 3 pieces together, or 3 parts together. And then with dance, the Boatman dance, I had students echo me. They actually put away their music, and Jonathan just played those notes on the piano with us. So the reason that I did this was I actually showed a student beforehand the music that we were going to do, and he actually, it scared him with how complicated the rhythms were, which would actually be really, really common in a middle school setting. So that's why I taught them the way that I did, so that way we wouldn't have people who were freaked out of the music or stopped singing just because the rhythms looked complicated. It's actually a super simple song. It has a lot of imitation in it. And then we also included solo groups instead of our soloists. As in middle school, a lot of the times they'll get scared when they have to sing just by themselves, so I wanted to make them feel a little more comfortable in that. And then we had the bare necessities, so I had part 1 and part 2. I had everybody sing every part, and then I often switched people on different parts in order that they could figure out if they had a vocal ranges, since a lot of these people I knew mostly their vocal ranges, but some of them I didn't, and I wanted to make sure that each of them were in a part that fit their vocal range. And then we also used a major we used trained intervals. So like major sixth or the tritone were the most difficult. So we would come up with a song that fit that. For example, a major second would be the happy birthday song. So we used that in our rehearsals in order to accomplish those intervals. So these were some of the standards that I used. So I used the expression of music. I wanted my students to perform with consistent tone quality, intonation, balance, diction, articulation, and phrasing for all of our pieces. And then I wanted students to identify musical symbols in our rehearsals. And I also, especially in the first couple rehearsals, focused specifically on that sight reading aspect of the theory of music, paying attention to our tempo, paying attention to those musical symbols. And then this last one, also an expression of music, performing with accurate rhythms, pitches, and intonation, and those expressive qualities. So what I assessed my students on, so in Jambo, I wanted my students to perform that syncopation and the pitches and intonation with 65% accuracy. So after seeing our first several rehearsals, I came to the conclusion that that's where I wanted us to be by the time we performed. And then I also had informal assessment, so students would ask questions. For example, in the song Jambo, one student was having issues with our dotted quarter and 16th note. So what I did was I had them go to the first page, which had that rhythm, and then flip to the third page, which had that exact rhythm, and that was the page we were having difficulties with. And then students can also perform that modulation in Music in the Water with that 70% accuracy. And then after our performance today, I will send out a self-reflection for my students so they can tell me what they felt they needed to improve upon, what they felt they did well, to kind of help me gauge how I could be a better director for them. So that is reflected there. So some of our formative assessments, so in the song Jambo, I had the students echo me, and for every single phrase they got right, they got a piece of candy. And then in Music in the Water, as I explained earlier, we did those sectionals when we did that modulation. And then this is going to be our summative assessment, so that's going to be a compilation of our last 4 rehearsals into our performance today. So if you would all please stand.
Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa. Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa. Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa. Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, hakuna matata. Habari gani? Hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Watu wote hakuna matata. tossed me into the calaboose. And dance, the boatman dance, the boatman dance, oh dance, the boatman dance. Till dark days late, kiss the girls and go home in the morning. A boatman is a clever man. There's no can do like a boatman can. I've never seen a pretty gal in my life, but that she wasn't a boatman's wife. And dance, the boatman dance, the boatman dance, oh dance, the boatman dance. Till dark days late, kiss the girls and go home in
this is on. Is this on or no? Aha, there we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my performance project. I know a lot of you are required to be here, but thank you nonetheless. I am Sarah Bergman, and this is my music ed performance project. So I'm going to take you through the process of everything I've done to get to this point. The first step in my process was choosing my ensemble, choosing what type of ensemble I was going to do. So I chose strings because that's my forte. I play violin, I love strings, I love teaching strings, and I wanted my performance project to be strings. So I chose to choose music and everything centered around a more advanced high school level string ensemble. My literature selection, I chose two pieces that are contrasting. The first one is Fantasia on Green Sleeves by Ralph Vaughan Williams. It is a stunning, beautiful piece that features a harp and two flute soloists and is one of my favorite pieces ever. I chose this piece back in the spring and spent a lot of time over the summer preparing it and doing score study because it's such a complex piece with beautiful soaring melodies and a lot of moving parts to it. The second piece I chose is the Toy Symphony. It is vastly different from the Fantasia on Green Sleeves. It is fun, it's lighthearted. The melody is a Baroque melody, it's Baroque style, and very, very simple, very fun, not super complicated, but overall just a really, really fun piece to play, and we are all really excited to show you all this piece. It was published under the name of Joseph Haydn, but no one actually knows if that's who wrote it. There's more information about that in your program notes. It was attributed to Leopold Mozart, Haydn, and several other people. Next, after I'd chosen my literature, came my ensemble recruitment. So I recruited mostly from here among my peers, and I recruited string people, obviously. So I had to get violins, violas, cellos, a bassist. I had to find a harpist. I had to find two flute players. There was a lot of different people I needed for this project that have come together for this, and I'm extremely grateful to all of them. As I recruited, I had to give each of them details, so I had a sheet that outlined all of the rehearsals, when and where they were. I required for them to come to at least 2 rehearsals, so 1 rehearsal and the dress rehearsal, as that's where they would get a lot of the information, because these are all busy college students that are involved in a lot of things and aren't always able to come to everything. So outlining those from the very beginning was very important to me. After I had done all of that and I recruited most of my ensemble, I then had to fill in a couple of gaps, and I spent time figuring out what gaps I needed to fill in. So I had an extra my second flautist that I needed to recruit, a couple of toy players in the Toy Symphony that I needed to fill in the gaps for. So I just did a little bit more recruiting after I had gotten most everyone. Next came score study and preparation. So as I said, I chose the Fantasia back in the spring for this project, and I did a lot of score study over the summer, which was very much needed. As I said, it's a very complex piece. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and I spent a lot of time going over rhythms, things that I knew would be complicated for the ensemble and that they would struggle with. And I spent a lot of time making sure I was really solid on those so that I could then direct my ensemble and give them the information and help that they needed throughout the process. The Haydn I did not choose till about 2 or 3 weeks into this semester, but as I said, it's a lot more simple of a piece, and I am very familiar with the Baroque style, and it's pretty much the same throughout any Baroque piece you will find, and so finding the little subtleties, and the complicated part with the Toy Symphony was the toys and getting those integrated and figuring out how to put those together with the strings. After that, I actually scheduled my rehearsals before the semester even started. But I had 4 rehearsals that I planned. My first one, I only had my strings here so that we could sight read and get through the music, as they are the main part of my ensemble, and I wanted to make sure they were solid first. At my second rehearsal, our harpist came in and played through the Fantasia with us, and we rehearsed that because she's plays through most of it, and I wanted to make sure she was solid, and all the players were really solid on playing with the harpist, as not everyone gets that experience. At my third and fourth rehearsals, we had the flutes come in and the toys, which you will see later. And we rehearsed with those and were able to put all of the moving parts together. As you can see, our dress rehearsal was yesterday, and so that was very fun, and we had a lot of fun doing various things, but also just running the pieces and making sure we were really solid on everything. Next came rehearsal planning. So I used a method that we use a lot in education, and I put a term on it, and most teachers do this, and that is backwards by design. And that simply means looking at where we want to end up with our ensembles. What is the end goal? Where is it that we want? Where are we going in this? So I considered what steps I needed to take to get my ensemble to that last point, to that end point. And I considered what goals I needed to accomplish within each rehearsal, or by the end of each rehearsal, in order to get to that point. So starting from where I ended up, splitting it up into the 4 rehearsals, and then from there, determining what I needed to do in each rehearsal in order to get my ensemble to those little end points at the end of each rehearsal, and then the end point, which is here today. I had to think a lot about logistics. It is a huge part of this. I couldn't just think about the music. So this included reminder emails to my ensemble, reminding them about when and where we were rehearsing and what we were going to be doing at each rehearsal. It required me to get here half an hour to an hour early so I could set up the stage to look like this. I could get all my music ready, and I could be fully prepared for my ensemble to show up at the times I had asked them to, and be ready to just jump right into rehearsal and the music so they could spend their time enjoying all of the music that we were learning. It also required me to run rehearsals, obviously, and to be in front of the ensemble, to let them know what we were doing, and just to have a plan each rehearsal so that I knew what I was going to do with them, even if they didn't know every single detail and every single step we were going to take. And then just communication with my ensemble, communicating when the performance was, what we were going to basically be doing each and every rehearsal. Even for today, like how we were going to transition between pieces, and what they were going to wear, and when they were going to come on stage, and all of these little moving pieces that I had to think about and communicate with my ensemble. So this is my pre-assessment. This was our sight reading process. I have a little clip of the Fantasia. This was us at our very first rehearsal playing through a part of the Fantasia. So another thing that I had to think about throughout my rehearsals is formative assessment. And in education, there are two types of assessment. There's formative, which are informal assessments that lets us as the teachers know and figure out where our students are at. So some of the formative assessments I did, one of them was asking questions. I wouldn't always do that with every ensemble because this is a more advanced ensemble. I would ask them, is there anything, I would have them self-assess and ask them, is there anything that you want to go over, have questions about, are unsure about, want to rehearse again, all these things, because I had faith in them and I knew my ensemble well enough to where I could do something like this. Another thing I did was at one of my rehearsals, I did sectionals. So the October 15th rehearsal, where I brought the toys in for the first time, I had my cellos and basses, my violins, and my toys split up into 3 different rooms, and I did sectionals. So I had each of them rehearse. I went around and I looked at each section as they were rehearsing, gave them a couple tips, but mostly just watched them. And it gave me a really solid understanding and baseline for where my ensemble was at and where each section in the ensemble was at, and I could hear them each section very clearly. And then another very simple formative assessment, hey, let's run the whole piece. Let's see where we're at. Even if we may not be at that end point, it gives me an idea of, oh, I need to mark that because we need to go back and rehearse that, and that may not have been a part that I remembered we needed to rehearse or realized that we needed to rehearse. So just a very simple formative assessment. The other type of assessment we have in education is a summative assessment. So I really like this quote, so I put it up there. But a summative assessment is used to evaluate student learning, skill acquisition, and academic achievement at the conclusion of a defined instructional period. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what a summative assessment is. It's the final grade. It is your final, and it's the last thing that you will do. So after this moment, after my performers come up here and perform, we will not have another rehearsal. They will not have anything else to do. This is our summative assessment. This is the end of that defined instructional period. I looked at the Colorado standards to help me determine where I wanted my ensemble to end up. So these are from the official Colorado Music Academic Standards, and they are from the accomplished section from the standards 1, 3, and 4. So the first one, which is 1, is expression of music. I wanted my performers to be able to perform contrasting pieces of music with expressive qualities, and I believe that that is something we accomplished through this and through the vastly different styles of music that we are playing today. And then demonstrate the ability to adjust elements of music, so that is pitch, rhythm, dynamics, timbre, texture, balance, and blend. And all of these things that we work on in our ensembles. Next was theory of music. So this came from the very first rehearsal as opposed to this final summative assessment. And that is to sight read, observing musical symbols, tempo indications, expressive indications, and mechanical or technical indications. And the last, which also relates to this final performance, is response to music, and that is to contrast performance styles and or techniques and describe the intent and application of each. So this comes not only from this last rehearsal, but also from the process. I talked with my ensemble a lot about the styles of each piece. We talked about Baroque and how we play Baroque and the techniques that we use, and if you asked any one of these performers, they would be able to tell you the style of each piece and 1 or 2 techniques that they are using that are different to each piece. So I would now like to invite my performers on stage, and we are going to perform our 2 pieces. I would also like to thank all of my performers, each and every one, those who jumped in last minute, those who have been here from the beginning. They have all been amazing, and I could not have done this without them. If they were not here, I would be standing alone on this stage, and it would not be the same thing. So thank you to each and every one of them. just have a brief transition so that we can get quickly set up for the toy symphony. So, as you know, this is the Toy Symphony. And it is rightly named because it has toys. So, we have party hats because why wouldn't you have party hats in the Toy Symphony? But before we play, I would like to quickly introduce the toys. First, we have Kyla playing the triangle. And then we have Justine Scott playing the cuckoo. Next, we have Emma Wynn playing the ratchet or the rattle. We also have Edie Lyons playing what is written for a toy trumpet but a normal trumpet. And lastly, we have Noah playing the nightingale. And now, please enjoy the Toy Symphony.